Stephen Vincent Benét was an American writer and poet, best known for The Devil and Daniel Webster. He was born in 1898 in Fountain Hill, Pennsylvania, the son of James Walker Benét, U.S. Army Colonel, and Frances Nail Rose. He attended Hitchcock Military Academy, Somerville Academy Augusta, and Yale. In 1921 he married Rosemary Carr. In 1926 he received the Guggenheim Fellowship Award. In 1928 he wrote John Brown's Body, a book-length narrative poem about the American Civil War. In 1936 he published his most famous story, The Devil and Daniel Webster, of a man selling his soul to the devil, Benét winning an O. Henry Award. He adapted the story into both a play and a folk opera, and it was made into a film in 1941, directed by William Dieterle. He died in New York in 1943. In 1939 he published Tales Before Midnight. It followed his 1937 mixed collection, 13 O'Clock, also containing supernatural fiction. Into Egypt is the story of a border officer in an anonymous German-speaking country, overseeing the forced exodus of all the Jews from the nation, which is rather heavy, philosophical, and in hindsight, a bit overly optimistic. Johnny Pie and the Fool Killer is about Johnny Pie, who runs away from his foster parents because he thinks the Fool Killer is after him. After going through many professions and growing up, the president makes him postmaster of the small town he ran away from, and refuses the Fool Killer's offer of eternal life, because he's already very old, and it would only get worse from there. O'Halloran's luck has an Irishman find a leprechaun in the US, and makes him shave and come work with him on the railroad to get a soul, helping O'Halloran to make a name for himself so he can marry the girl he wants to. Both this and Johnny Pie have a bit of a didactic tone and feel a bit patronizing. In Jacob and the Indians, a young Jewish scholar moves from Germany to America in the frontier days. He's a peddler at first, tolerated for his wisdom, but then to make a name for himself, he goes west to scout the country and establish trading posts with the natives, and then years later he returns, but instead of the girl he had left for to be able to marry her in the first place, he falls for a young girl he sees for the first time, at the very end, making the beginning feel a bit pointless. The Die Hard has a young boy become acquainted with Colonel Capello, an old Confederate colonel, who speaks of some great conspiracy for the old times to come again, and the Confederacy to be reborn, reading nothing but old newspapers from before the end of the war, buying up millions of useless Confederate dollars, while drilling Jimmy Williams to be part of his army, and preparing to attack the post office. But nothing comes of the whole thing. Doc Melhorn in the Pearly Gates has a doctor arriving in heaven, on being told there is no work for him to do there, turn about and go down the other road, and finding quite a plentiful supply of patients. Then follow 5 quite tedious stories that have nothing interesting about them. 2 of them have a divorced man or woman going on about how their marriage ended, and going on and on about New York and their friends there. Another unremarkable tale has a wife initially very much not liking the fact her husband keeps telling the same crass joke about the anteater over and over. Another has a 16-year-old girl being sent to a convent because she and the boy she was in love with ate some food at her house and then fell asleep on the couch fully clothed. The last of the legions is interesting, telling of the evacuation of the Valeria Victrix out of Britain to go fight Alaric's Visigoths, the centurion feeling the end of Rome is inevitable. The general fiction here is rather underwhelming, and there's nothing half as interesting after the story of Doc Melhorn, aside from the last story.